Please be seated. So, during Lent this year, I was absent for a couple Sundays. And some of you know that was because I took a train trip out to New Mexico. I got on that Amtrak train and I stayed on it for about 48 hours and I ended up in Albuquerque. Then I was in New Mexico for about 3 weeks. And I spent most of my time in Albuquerque. But when Blue flew out to spend part of his spring break with me, we drove around the state a little bit. One of the places we went was somewhere I've always wanted to go, and that was Roswell, New Mexico. They have a museum there about aliens. It's also like kind of an adorable town. There's a certain part of the town where all of the street lamps are shaped like alien heads. It's really, it's fun. So we went to this museum in Roswell, and I will say it was mostly stunningly underwhelming. But I tried to glean what I could. And something that jumped out at me was, on all of the wall displays, there was a lot of kind of, I would say like scientific or pseudoscientific sounding language. It was very clear that that the museum wanted to appeal to scientific knowledge and a scientific way of understanding the world to quote unquote prove the existence of aliens. And this, so there was stuff about physics and different things about outer space and all kind of subtly making the case that aliens had landed in Roswell however many years ago. But then, in the gift shop, which admittedly was really what I was there for, there were all of these magnets and pins and T-shirts with different kinds of aliens on them, with the word under it, believe. And I just was so fascinated by this coming together of kind of a scientific worldview and then this what we would call a more faith worldview of just believe, just believe. I almost got a bumper sticker with that on it. And somewhere way in American culture, and I think generally in the West overall, the word belief came to mean something very particular. And you think about it, the way we use the word belief, even around things that are, scientific theories or scientifically proven. Do you believe in evolution? Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe the earth is round? Do you believe that vaccines are safe and effective? Do you believe in Santa Claus? All of these things, we use the same word, believe. Things like the earth being round, and then things like Santa Claus. And so in Christianity, when we say, do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus? I kind of think it's started to miss something. Because the last thing I want to do is add Jesus to a list that includes Santa Claus, ghosts, and vaccines. But it's set up this situation where religion and really faith itself in a lot of American culture has become reduced to some kind of mental gymnastics, that if you're strong enough, if you have enough willpower to believe certain things that are not provable in a scientific sense, in the same manner that you believe things that are provable in a scientific sense, that's something that means you have strong faith. Do we believe in God the same way that we believe in photosynthesis? Or we believe in the existence of cells, which we also can't see? I think it's something different. I don't think we believe in God the same way we believe in those things. And moreover, I don't think that's really a deeply meaningful or spiritually effective way of believing in God anyway, to tell you the truth. I wonder what Thomas would have to say about all this. Thomas, in our reading today, known as Doubting Thomas. I have had certain friends tell me they love Thomas because Thomas is a scientist. He wants to see it. Thomas wants to touch the body of Jesus to really believe it. Thomas needs to have it proven. Well, the story is, in case you missed it, Thomas isn't there the first time that Jesus shows up to his disciples. And his friends are telling him about it later, we can imagine, but he does not trust his friend's account. No, he says, I need to see it. I only trust my own experience here. I need to see Jesus with my own eyes. In fact, I need to actually touch his wounds. Now, maybe you feel some sympathy with Thomas. I certainly do. As we all know, eyewitness accounts are notoriously unreliable. And who wouldn't require this kind of proof for something that is so impossible? A dead man coming back to life. It makes me think there's a deeper issue, too, beneath Thomas's demand. That maybe it's not just doubt, maybe it's not just this kind of scientific, I need proof kind of thing, but it's the fear and the grief and the human need for reassurance after a traumatic loss. We often think about this story just as one about doubt and kind of an intellectual assent to something that happened. We think of this kind of doubt as the opposite of a kind of rational scientific belief. But I think it may actually be something much more emotional. You know, in ancient Greek, there is no word that perfectly matches how we use the word believe in English. The way we use the word believe in English in 2026. And honestly, nor could there be, because, for one, a scientific worldview did not exist back then in that culture. But even without that little note, the word, which is pistio in Greek, it's actually best translated as trust or even to have faith in. Not believe. Some translations of the Bible will say trust or have faith. But that can also be confusing because I do think we also often conflate faith with belief. I personally think of faith and belief as two things that are quite different. Beliefs can change over the courses of our lives. I think that's actually a sign of spiritual health. You believe one thing, and then you start to get more evidence, and you believe another thing. You don't believe one thing, and then you learn more about it, and you learn the context, and then maybe you start to believe it. What we believe about who God is and how God acts and what Jesus was about, these things can all shift over the course of our lives. If we think of Christianity, in fact, just as an enormous conversation focused on the person named Jesus who lived 2,000 years ago, we can think of beliefs as the many, many, many things that have been said about Jesus over the course of 2,000 years, the many, many, many things and images that have been placed around God and the church. The beliefs are the content of the conversation. But faith, I think of as the commitment to stay in the conversation. Trusting that there is something valuable about remaining in the room where the conversations are happening, even if we aren't sure about the content of our own beliefs at any given time. So why does this matter? Well, I think our surrounding culture does equate religious belief with intellectual assent. And that's how we get the idea that faith and science are somehow at odds with one another. That faith is just kind of a different scientific worldview. But belief is also not the same as understand or know anything about or know everything about. And when we hold that close, we can start to wonder if religious experience, if our experience of faith is really all about being certain instead of engaging with the unknowable mysteries of existence in such a way that we become more loving, more forgiving, more generous, and more joyful. But let's go back to Thomas. What was really at stake for him in refusing his friend's testimony? I mean, why not just say, oh, okay, you saw him? What did his disbelief protect him from? I mean, my first thought is definitely from disappointment. It's good to be protected from disappointment. But it also closes him off from wonder, community, and from transformation. Think about that week between when the disciples without Thomas saw Jesus and the time that Thomas saw him. I imagine Thomas felt very alone with all of the other disciples. Certain they had seen something that Thomas did not believe. I have another question about Thomas, though. Why are the wounds of Jesus the primary proof that he seeks? Why not until I look into his eyes, or until I touch his hand, or until I hear his voice? For Thomas, it was the wounds. The wounds were the primary proof. And my guess, though I certainly don't know, is because Thomas was in a state of mind where the truest thing in the world were those wounds. The crucifixion had become his primary way of understanding Jesus. And Thomas's own trauma maybe had become his way of understanding the world. We all do this. We all have things that we know are true, and that anything that challenges those things that we know is simply beyond belief. We don't believe it. I'm not talking here about things like flat earth or aliens. I'm talking about the deeper and often unarticulated things that we believe, like my ability to withstand poor treatment makes me a good person. Or if I stay vigilant, I can keep disaster away. Or people who get close to me really only want to control me. Or there is always someone to blame when bad things happen. Or maybe the most common, I am a burden to other people if I ask for help. Another question about the wounds. Thomas needing to touch the wounds. Was this traumatizing for Jesus too? To have his wounds be touched? To have his wounds be the one thing that Thomas knew was true about him? It's an incredible act of vulnerability to show someone your wound, to allow them to touch it. This was something I learned, literally, being a hospital chaplain, particularly when I was visiting with combat veterans. Over time, I learned if they wanted to show me their wound, no matter how much I do not like the sight of blood, I would look, because it was a sign that they trusted me. But even in that trauma, that vulnerability, Jesus' response to Thomas, it's not shaming him. It's meeting him where he is, while also inviting him into a larger way of seeing the world. Was Jesus saying, "Blessed are those who have not seen"? When he said that, Do you think that was a kind of statement that we should just blindly accept truth claims? I don't think so. I think it was more about, what kind of person are you becoming, Thomas? Are you becoming someone who cannot imagine anything more than what you can see? Are you becoming someone who cannot trust the experiences of your friends? How then will you trust the experiences of people who are not your friends? Yet, how can you possibly build a community, a true community, without the willingness to trust that your friends are not lying to you? I think when Jesus says, "Blessed are those who have not seen," this is not a command to shut off your brain, but an invitation not to let the limits of your own experience become the limits of reality. In fact, I think the question that really is underneath the whole gospel, it is not, do you believe that this happened? In some ways, if we think of belief as intellectual assent, that's not even a very important question, to be honest. The question is maybe more along the lines of, what kind of person are you becoming as you come in contact with this story? Are we becoming the kind of people that can trust as a way of life? Can we trust beauty, love, mercy, resurrection, even before we can prove them? The deepest Christian question, I don't think, is, do you believe? It is, do you love? And will you take risks to love even more? Amen.